2026 NFL Scouting Combine is underway in Indianapolis. Welcome to First Stop Indy, presented by EOS Fitness. I'm Paul Gutierrez. With the Raiders on the clock with that number 1 overall draft pick, and while the Combine sometimes gets derided as the underwear Olympics, it's an opportunity. A chance for the Raiders, armed with that top pick, a new coach in Clint Kubiak, and a second-year GM in John Spytek, to start anew. Yes, 99.99% of all mock drafts in the known universe, they have Heisman Trophy-winning quarterback Fernando Mendoza coming to Las Vegas with that first pick. But the Combine, well, it also offers Spytek and Kubiak a chance to scout other players to help fill out the ranks as they chart a new course for Raider Nation. To help me break down the draft and Combine, we bring in NFL.com analyst and co-host of the Raiders NFL Draft podcast, Bucky Brooks. Bucky, thanks for joining me. And I was just taking a look online, and I know it was only 1.0, but you had your list of top 5 prospects at every position. And I'm just wondering, to localize it here from a Raider perspective, what are some of the names that you think are going to kind of float the Raiders' way? And we obviously kind of know where number 1 is going, but again, I'll let you tell me.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a draft class that is really, really talented at the offensive tackle spot, edge rusher. You have some cornerbacks and safeties that are intriguing. To me, I think when we talk about like the tackle class, you can't necessarily talk about the guys at the top, but you think about at the top of the second round. Mm-hmm. So a Blake Miller from Clemson will be someone of interest. Monroe Freeling could be a guy that gets into that conversation. But there's certainly some guys that can fall down that can give you some bang for the buck when you talk about the top of the second round.
So not only offensive tackle, obviously, because we're talking about at number 1 is potentially Fernando Mendoza, and if you're getting the quarterback that early, you got to protect him, right? And that's the offensive line. The NFL calendar being what it is, free agency hits first, and then the draft. But you're at the Combine before free agency starts. So how do you kind of juggle from when you're looking at talent that way? Because you're kind of filling in holes with the draft, but yet you're getting ready for the future.
So, like, when you're sitting in the Raiders situation, I'm looking at the numbers. You have $90 million in cap space. Mm-hmm. What you want to do is you want to attack some of the needs based on the strength of the draft. So what you would like to do in the front office is you look at free agency, what's available there. You look at the draft and what's available there. And where they're weak in the draft, you want to be strong in free agency, ideally. And so if you're the Raiders and there's some veteran offensive linemen or veteran pieces that you can put in place, you take those guys, and then what that frees you up to do is to take the best available player when it comes to the draft. So a lot of it is dependent upon how the Raiders, John Spytek and those guys view, where do we want to attack with a veteran player versus, we want to take the best available players in these other positions.
And then like you mentioned earlier, with the Raiders having that number 1 pick, unless they trade back up into the first round or package something to get up there, they're picking, I believe, 4th to start day 2 with the way that the rotation works with those top 4 teams. What are some of the guys at receiver that could potentially still be there? I'm looking at your list of your top 4 receivers. You got Tyson, Arizona State, Tate from Ohio State, Lemon from USC, and then, there's a very familiar name to Raider fans, at least the old school guys like us, Zachariah Branch, Cliff Branch, Hall of Famer, the late Hall of Famer's a great nephew. What's somebody that could kind of potentially fit in that role?
Yeah, Zachariah Branch is terrific. He's fantastic with the ball in his hands. His explosiveness is something that's going to stand out. But if you get beyond him and you think about like a guy that can come in and start, you think about an ex-receiver. So Malachi Fields from Notre Dame could be in position to be there. Denzel Boston from Washington is another one that could be there. Chris Brazzell from Tennessee. All of those names are going to be in that cluster of wide receivers that could be available for the Raiders at the top of the second round. And they're guys that should be plug-and-play types when you think about their potential and their performance element right away.
Plug-and-play guys, and I know you got your eye specifically on the cornerback room, right, considering your history as a player. What are some of the guys that the Raiders could potentially zero in on? And the cornerback, again, it's not going to be early in the draft, but later on, the guys that could potentially contribute, if not start for them, because they've got some guys that they took last year. They've also got some questions on the free agency end of things. Who do you have your eyes on cornerback-wise in the draft?
You know, this is a really interesting class because you have some guys that can make it happen. I'm going to think like second-round talents, right, because we know the quarterback is going to be first. And so you're going to have some borderline guys. So like a Colton Hood, who people are talking about being in the first, but he could be available maybe top of the second round. You're going to have some other guys like Pounds, the quarterback from Indiana who has great instincts, great awareness. His ability to play the nickel position is going to make him available. So that's D'Angelo Pounds. You have Chris Johnson from San Diego State. He's 6 foot, 195 pounds. He kind of falls right in that mix. A lot of it really depends on defensive coordinator Rob Leonard, what they want to continue to do on defense. Stylistically, do they want a bump and run guy? Do they want a zone guy? Do they want to play vision and break? That will kind of determine which style of cornerback they'll take and they'll look for in those day 2 prospects.
And like you mentioned as well, it depends upon what they do in free agency. Eric Stokes was a starter last year, stayed relatively healthy all year long. So if they bring him back, then it gives them a little bit of wiggle room, I would think, cushion at cornerback. But now looking at what the Raiders did on the coaching side of things, bringing in Clint Kubiak, offensive-minded guy. He's going to be a play caller. It's going to be his scheme. You've talked about how the Kubiak scheme can turn average players into Pro Bowlers and turn Pro Bowlers into MVPs. What exactly does that look like? What does that mean?
Well, what it means is it's a system that is like we talk about systematic.
Yeah.
How can you make it quarterback friendly so that the quarterback is comfortable doing what he's being asked to do? Well, one of the things that the system is built on is a dominant running game. And then after the running game, there are complementary bootleg and play action passes that work off of that. So when you think about the quarterbacks like a Jared Goff and how he performed very, very well under Sean McVay, he comes to mind. You think about Brock Purdy's success in San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan. You think about Sam Darnold where Clint Kubiak was just there, where they ran the football effectively, maybe at a 50-50 clip, but then when they threw it for explosive plays. The benefit of the running game being the foundation is it lures the second-level defenders to the line of scrimmage, and it creates big play opportunities for the quarterback. And if the quarterback is comfortable turning his back to the defense, operating under center, man, it becomes a system that can really elevate the quarterback and make the game easy for him while still getting a ton of production from him.
So it sounds like you're kind of paging Ashton Genty then to kind of either step up or not get hit behind the line of scrimmage, but that's going to be dependent upon the offensive line being fixed as well. What about Clint's scheme can Raider fans really be excited about? I know you just kind of broke down the X's and O's there, but what should they be excited about, not only if it is Fernando Mendoza at quarterback, but Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers, Michael Mayer, another receiver? How does that all look and how does that translate?
Well, let's go 2 stops ago. Clint Kubiak was with the San Francisco 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers offense is built upon 2 players, Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle. Well, I'm not saying that CMC and Ashton Genty are the same, but we can say that you talk about a franchise running back and a dominant tight end. So now you think about run game, play action, work in the middle of the field. And Michael Mayer, you have another tight end that can be effective. So now 12 personnel, 1 back, 2 tight ends coming into play. And if you can find another weapon on the outside that is dependable, what it does is you run the game through Genty and Bowers, and then you find that complementary weapon on the outside to deliver the big plays. It's a system that's been tried and true, going all the way back to Mike Shanahan, Gary Kubiak. They've run this system for years and have had a lot of success. To me, it's one where you get the right pieces of the puzzle together, the offense is going to be electric and explosive on its own.
And when you were a player, you played against those types of offenses, so you speak from experience. Lastly, Bucky, I want to get your take on this. Now that you're doing the deep dive on the Raiders draft pod, what are some of the differences you've seen between a national narrative between what the Raiders are about to embark upon and what you found doing this deep dive on the draft pod with your partner, Red Lewis?
Now, look, I would say like doing a deep dive and the optimism of what we just saw take place in Super Bowl 60. The New England Patriots were 4-13 the previous year, and they found themselves into the Super Bowl because they not only got the people right, they got the culture and the environment right. So as much as we'll talk about these prospects and players, I think it's really important that the Raiders establish who they are and who deserves to wear the silver and black. And if you get the right people, all of that other stuff will happen. And I think with Spatek, with Kubiak, and those guys coming together, trying to make sure they're on the same page in terms of the right people, ultimately you'll get the right players in the right positions and have a lot of success. But I think you can be optimistic because in the NFL, it is built for quick turnarounds to happen if you get the right things in place. And I'm confident with the leadership that's in place, you can turn this thing around pretty quickly.
And that's the goal always. Bucky, he's a co-host of the Raiders NFL Draft podcast, but he's also a former Raider himself. Bucky, thanks for the time.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Coming up next on First Stop Indy, Charles Davis joins the show.
game day. The day we've been waiting for. And this is more than just a game. It's a passion, a lifestyle. It's time to suit up, Raider Nation. This is Raiders football, where we all bleed silver and black. It doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. Here at the Raider Image, you're part of our team. Every hat, every piece of gear. Let your loyalty show out. Whether you're in the stands or cheering from home, we've got your back. Feel the confidence, own the game.
We
are the Raider Image. Your game, your gear. Exclusively at the Raider Image.
Raider Nation, when the autumn wind fades, a new storm begins. Draft season is here. Welcome back for Season 4 of the Raiders NFL Draft Podcast. I'm Rhett Lewis from NFL Network, and former NFL scout and Raider Bucky Brooks is back with me this season for your front row seat to one of the most important off seasons in Raider history. And this year, the Raiders sit at the very top of the board for the first time in nearly 2 decades, the number 1 overall pick and 10 total selections. A new chapter begins under General Manager John Spytek and head coach Clint Kubiak. We'll explore draft philosophy, roster construction, and the moves that could shape the future of the organization. The NFL Draft runs April 23rd through April 25th in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This is where the future of the silver and black begins. Listen on Raiders.com, the Raiders app, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, welcome to First Stop Indy, presented by EOS Fitness. I am Paul Gutierrez, and I'm now joined by Charles Davis, I want to say from the NFL Network, which is providing live coverage of the 2026 NFL Scouting Combine Thursday through Sunday. But Charles, I think I want, as I look in front of me, I want to say I'm a member of the 1989 UOP, University of the Pacific coaching staff, along with John Gruden, your roommate at the time, and Hugh Jackson, a former Raiders head coach.
Yeah.
So I just had Peyton, our producer on site, just showed you the photo. I mean, knee-jerk reaction to that photo. I mean, when you look back in time like that and you see that young guy, the defensive secondary coach for the Tigers, what comes to mind?
Well, first and foremost, I'm dying to know what led you down that path. I mean, what got you down that rabbit hole? But we can do that for another day. I think what I'm reminded of first and foremost is, you know, something that helped me get to where I am today. I cut my teeth on things of that nature. You know, I was roommates with John Gruden. That's where I first met Hugh Jackson. Walt Harris was our head coach, who later on went on to great success at Pitt and was the head coach at Stanford. Just unbelievable times. I was young, and right now, just give me one chance to apologize to all the young men that I coached at UOP. You deserve better, guys. You absolutely deserve better, okay?
Charles,
but I had some great youngsters there, and we were almost the same age, which was wild.
Yeah, when you look back at that staff, and they say UOP was the cradle of coaches anyways. I mean, guys that came out of there, Pete Carroll came out of there as well. But for your perspective, you've seen it from and that's one of the reasons I bring up that photo and your time back there is you've seen the game from the grassroots at that level of college to the NFL, being a voice of the league, really, and a lot of the things that you do. When you look at the Raiders, and you're at the Combine now, they have that number 1 overall pick. They kind of control the draft a little bit. Everybody's linking them to Fernando Mendoza, as you have. You've got them going there to the Raiders at number 1 overall. What makes sense about that in your estimation right here, right now?
This needs a full reset. Like, you know, bringing Pete Carroll in last year, I was excited about the possibilities there, about having the veteran coach to bring this team and bring this franchise along. But once they decided to pivot away from Pete and go in the direction now with Clint Kubiak, you need that head coach tied with his own quarterback during that time. I don't know what's going to happen with Geno Smith. I don't know whether they're going to let him be the veteran and let Mendoza learn. I tend to doubt it. When a guy's picked number 1 overall, he tends to get the ball right away, and you go from there. But this is a youngster who has shown incredible toughness. we're going to talk about that fourth down draw in the national championship game forever.
Yeah.
Anybody remember the first play of the Big Ten championship game when he got hit right in the chops and had to go out of the game? He had to go out of the game for a play, and then he was back and led his team over Ohio State, which I don't think a lot of people thought was really, truly going to happen. I think people thought, okay, now you're playing Ohio State for the big stakes. This kid plays when the lights are on. He has incredible maturity about him. He seems like the type of kid who can handle this well, and he continues to get better. And he's the latest in a line of quarterbacks that going into their last year in college maybe weren't rated where they ended up, but it sure worked out. Joe Burrow fit that, right? Yeah. Zach Wilson fit that. Now we're talking about Mendoza. We're talking about Cam Ward, who many people didn't see as the number 1 overall pick going into his last year, became that. I think Mendoza's the latest in that line of quarterbacks doing it.
Beyond the quarterback, Charles, when you look at the Combine, I know you're a big fan of the Combine. A lot of people kind of look down on it a little bit, saying, well, it's just the underwear Olympics, so to speak. But you're a big fan of it. What can change? And if teams are already kind of locked in on who they're taking up at the top of the draft, what can change over the course of this week?
Paul, I think what can change is how your evaluations have been graded, because a good number of things you've done with great people scouting, and they're using their educated eyes, ears, experience, watching things. And you think a kid is a certain deal, right? You may even have something in terms of times from somewhere else about them. But then you watch them at the Combine, and maybe they are more than what you thought, or maybe they were less than what you thought. That's often why if I'm advising a youngster who says, should I run at the Combine, should I do the drills at the Combine, I'm all about doing everything, because if something doesn't work out real well, I can go back and do it again at the pro day.
True.
Remember Joe Hayden, the great cornerback that played in the NFL with Cleveland and Pittsburgh?
Yes.
He came here as a lock top 5 to top 10 pick. And I don't know what happened. I always said his biorhythms were off. The moon wasn't in the 7th house. Something was up. He ran slowly. He didn't perform as well in drills, the whole deal. 3 weeks later at his pro day at Florida, on grass, he ran a sub 4.4. Yeah. He jumped better. He moved better. And, okay, that's the kid we needed to see. I do think a lot of it is we either confirm things or we start to ask more questions. And that's what I think you can learn from the Combine.
So with that in mind, what are John Spytek and Clint Kubiak looking out for in your mind this week as well? Because they do have, beyond the 10 draft picks, so to speak, they also have close to $100 million in salary cap space. What should their main targets be beyond that number 1 pick that you have going in your mock draft?
I know this is going to sound trite, Paul, and I don't mean for it to, but I was part of a broadcast team last year that I think we saw the Raiders 5, maybe 6 times.
Yeah.
And I walked away from there thinking there's not a single spot on this team other than starting running back that I wouldn't try, where am I going to not try to upgrade? Of course, you get Colton Miller back at left tackle. I think that's a really good player. But this is a team that needs it everywhere. So if you're John Spytek, if you're Tom Brady, if you're all the rest of this brass that is making these decisions, there's not a single place that you don't look and think, yeah, let me get going there. The reason I didn't mention Max Crosby is my understanding is that the Raiders want to keep him around, and rightly so. But you also know the rest of the league is sniffing around pretty hard now, right? What if that offer comes flying in that they have to evaluate? Potentially. But obviously if he stays around, that's not a place you need to worry about. But this team needs an infusion of talent at almost every level, every place, every spot. I'm not turning down anything. So where's the draft really good? Edge rushers, defensive linemen, okay? There's some cover guys in this draft. There's always a ton of receivers, all right? That's just the way it is with college football nowadays. And I do think there's some offensive linemen in this draft that you can get outside of the first round. So if I'm the Raiders, there's not a single place I'm turning down. I'm starting with Mendoza, and then we just take off, and I'm going to take the best I can get in each and every round. And if they can accumulate even more picks, take them.
Yeah.
They need players.
Makes sense. Charles, just hearing your voice is great. Catching up, looking at your bio from 1989 in UOP, even better. So I look forward here, though. Next time I play Madden, I think I'm going to go for it on 4th down. I just want to know if you're going to criticize me or not, because a lot of people are upset about what you say on the Madden game. 4th down, I'm going for it.
I hear it all the time, and I vow to try and not be as critical. I apologize for that. But if you want to go for it on 4th down and 44, you go right ahead. That's fine with me.
Sounds good. Charles, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate you.
Take care. Coming up next on First Stop Indy, Jeffri Chadiha joins the show.
It's game day, the day we've been waiting for. And this is more than just a game, it's a passion, a lifestyle. Here at the Raider Image, you're part of our team. Whether you're in the stands or cheering from home, we've got your back. Feel the confidence, own the game.
We
are the Raider Image. Your game, your gear, exclusively at the Raider Image.
When I found out we had to move to Italy, I was pretty shocked, and it was a crazy experience to, tell all, my teammates, my coaches, all my friends that, in, a month or so I'll be packing up, moving overseas, and, you'll probably never see me again. I think the hardest thing in life is to handle change, and, such a big change early has really set me up, to where I'm at now. Playing football in Italy, it was fun, but, it wasn't the most competitive. But, just getting to travel and see different aspects of different countries. I mean, going to Germany, going to Spain, going to different places around Italy.
Ashton carved out his path, living in Italy, where American football wasn't as mainstream. Ashton and the game of football found their way to each other.
I love it, man. Matter of fact, when I walked in the locker room, I thought I was going to start crying.
It's fantastic. It's a beautiful stadium.
Hey, welcome to First Stop Indy, presented by EOS Fitness. I'm now joined by Jeffri Chadiha, who is on site there in Indianapolis at the Combine. Jeffri, thanks for taking the time. I know it's a very, very busy week for you, covering everything NFL related for the NFL Network. It's providing live coverage of the NFL Scouting Combine Thursday through Sunday. So, Jeffri, when you're thinking of the Raiders and you're thinking of them having the number 1 overall pick, do they truly control the rest of the draft, or is it just kind of a foregone conclusion where they're going to go in your mind?
Well, I think it's foregone. I mean, you have to get a quarterback if you're the Raiders. I look at the AFC West, and I look at Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and Bo Nix and just the coaches that those quarterbacks have. If you're not stable at that position and with the head coach, I don't know how you're going to compete. So I know there's a lot of discussion and speculation and talk about what could happen and who wants to move up and what Fernando Mendoza is. But ultimately, if you're the Raiders, this has got to be a foregone conclusion.
Well, I got to jump in on there on something you said. So what is Fernando Mendoza in your mind? I mean, is he, in terms of being a number 1 overall pick, he's a Heisman winner, he's a national champion, but he's very intriguing because of the things that, maybe because of the other quarterbacks that aren't in the draft with him. But in your estimation, what is he right here, right now?
Well, he's a winner, first of all. I mean, that's what I like about him. He's a champion. That matters. And if you're Tom Brady, you understand the importance of that. That's probably the biggest thing that he would look for in a quarterback. And John Spytek, all these guys who evaluate, they have to be thinking, we want somebody who can come in here and can compete. Again, I mentioned the guys in the other parts of the division. You better have somebody who thinks he can beat those guys. And so I like that about Fernando Mendoza. I understand that he's not – if he was in a different class, say with Drake May and all the guys who came out, J.J. McCarthy, Nix and those guys, Jaden Daniels, it might be a different conversation. But you are what you are. You end up where you end up. And so he had an opportunity to come to Indiana. People weren't high on him, weren't talking about him. and he made his name, and he played on the biggest stage, and he basically helped turn around one of the worst football programs in the history of college football. And so that, to me, is a lot to like about the guy.
And then when you look at the Raiders, I don't want to say they're starting, from scratch or anything, but it is interesting that you have a new coach. You have a GM in his second year. You have the potential to bring in a franchise quarterback, all starting from the same spot. How intriguing is that? How important is that for a franchise like the Raiders if you got coach and quarterback not only on the same page, but starting together on page one?
Well, it's super important because I think most of the really good quarterbacks in this league have had stability, and they've had a connection to their quarterback, and usually they've had an offensive-minded head coach. And so you have the opportunity to set it right from the beginning where you're able to put pieces in place where there's trust, where there's a foundation, there's an understanding. And there should be patience, to be honest with you, because this is not going to be a one-year fix, New England-type situation. You're going to have to take your lumps and figure out how to succeed. But if everybody's on the same page, that makes a huge difference. The worst thing that could happen to whoever the quarterback is, if it's Fernando Mendoza or somebody else, to come in here with Clint Kubiak, is for the next year to be a different coordinator and 2 years later a different head coach, and you don't want to go down that road.
You're knee-deep in the AFC West, especially being in Kansas City. When you look at the rest of the division, and you mentioned the quarterbacks, we talk about the coaches that are there. The Raiders, again, are not starting over per se, but they're starting fresh. Are they kind of, and I don't use this as a pun because I'm in Las Vegas, are they kind of playing with house money here, though, starting from the beginning here and looking at the rest of the division? How do you see the Raiders kind of factoring into the rest of this division?
Well, it's certainly, again, I think they are house money is the right way to put it. People know that given where Kansas City is, given that the Broncos, the Chargers are on the uptick, they've been in the playoffs, all these are playoff caliber teams. Again, nobody's going to expect these guys to – now, it's great if it happens, but nobody's going to expect them to go out and win 10, 11, 12 games next year. So you have time to build your program, to find the type of players you want to have. You've got salary cap space. You can put together a plan that makes sense. So that gives you some house money here. I don't think that – most coaches in this league know they probably got a couple years to get it figured out. I think in this situation, with the competition, with the division, you probably got maybe 3 years to get it right. And that's a nice benefit to have.
It's interesting, too, with Clint Kubiak coming in as a first-time head coach. He's going to be the offensive play caller, obviously. But he's brought with him on his staff nearly half of them. 5 of the 11 coaches have worked together with him or been a part of his system before. Yeah. What does that say about the loyalty of the guys that are coming with him, especially the guys that came from Seattle that just won a Super Bowl?
Yeah, well, it does mean a lot. It shows you he made a huge impact because, keep in mind, he was only there for 1 year. So he obviously made a huge impression. Certainly probably had relationships with these guys going back to before Seattle. But, one, it's pretty uncommon that for a coach to leave a place and take that many coaches with him. So I think Mike McDonald isn't crazy about that. But ultimately it does speak to Clint Kubiak's relationship, his chemistry, the way he works with people. And the fact that guys want to go and do some damage elsewhere. I'm a big believer that when you start taking people who've been involved in championship programs, highly successful programs, organizations, and you bring them someplace else, they understand the codes, right? They have the cheat codes. And so that's a great blessing for the Raiders organization.
And then when you look at the rest of his coordinators that he's brought with him, obviously he brought with him an assistant head coach who already kind of has pelts on the wall, so to speak. Mike McCoy, he's been a head coach. He's been in the division. Was the Chargers head coach for a little while. But Rob Leonard, promoted to defensive coordinator from Raiders defensive line coach. And like we mentioned before, Clint is going to be – it's his offense. He's going to be the play caller. But he brings with him a familiar face in Andrew Janocko as his offensive coordinator. Don't want to say he's a glorified quarterback coach, but you kind of wonder what the role is going to be there. Granted, the relationship is there too. This is his third straight year in a third different stop with Clint as well. What are you looking for offensively from this team? Because they do have some pieces. They do have Ashton Jeanty at running back, Brock Bowers at tight end, Michael Mayer at tight end, a lot of 12 personnel. What kind of offense can you see the Raiders getting going? Very early in the game, obviously, but just based on the staff they put together and the pieces they still have.
Oh, I expect it to look a lot like what they did in Seattle. Mm-hmm. And given who Clint Kubiak is, given who his father was, who his father coached with, all the Shanahan tree stuff, they're going to do a lot of play action. They're going to build a strong run game. They're going to use the tight ends a lot, so all these guys you talked about are going to be factors in this offense. And if I'm Ashton Jeanty, I'm super excited about maybe becoming what Christian McCaffrey was in San Francisco, having that kind of role, or maybe a combination of what Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet had been in Seattle. These guys, Kubiak and his staff, have a proven track record of understanding the importance of how to run the football, to be creative with the run. And that, to me, is the NFL's changed. And living in Kansas City, I see this. The Chiefs are struggling with this change, this trend of you just can't go out there and make explosive plays in the passing game anymore and throw the football down the field when you want to. You've got to have a combination of the strong run game, play action, and then the explosive plays come after that.
It'll be real interesting because I think a lot of Raider fans watching was like, just please put Ashton Jeanty in space and let him create. Easier said than done, but you would think that would be the first box to check. And then if you're Ashton, you're looking, you're saying, the running back was just the Super Bowl MVP? I mean, that's got to kind of feel good as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Because, again, and that was a guy who obviously they lost Charbonnet, so they put more on his back. But these guys, Kubiak believes in the idea of, hey, we can run the offense through running back. And I love it because I know for a long time there we went through a period where the running backs were being devalued and dismissed and ignored. And now people are realizing that, I had a friend of mine who's a front office guy in the NFC West. We talked about just how much the NFL game has changed and how different it is from college football. College football is so wide open because the quarterback can run, right? That affects the defense. He said, NFL now is like, it's like old men playing pickup basketball. Nobody's blowing by anybody. Everybody's kind of banging into each other, and there's no space. And so you got to really be creative and have a physical presence. And so, if you're Ashton Jeanty, this is your time to shine.
But if it's you playing pickup basketball, you're 12 feet or in, you're automatic from what I remember, no?
Yeah, I'm automatic. I actually put my rank. Actually, I'm a swimmer now, but before I stopped playing, I was getting hit in threes pretty consistently.
There you go. You and my guy Anderson Hunt from UNLV back in the day. Hey, again, you sound like you're all in on Fernando Mendoza at number one. What are you hearing there? I know it's early in the week, but what could potentially move the Raiders off number one? We'll just wrap up with that.
Oh, I think it would take a lot. I mean, certainly you've seen a lot of tremendous deals come down the pipe over the last few years for people to move up and get those kind of opportunities. I think about, obviously, the Bryce Young in Chicago. That was the deal that probably people most remember about the haul that Chicago took, and it really helped set them up for what they are now. Yeah. And so I do get that it's hard to think about giving up that pick. But what I do think is Mendoza, and I think the other part of this conversation is what happens with Max Crosby. Right, because he has tremendous value. He can bring assets, and if you can get assets for him and get a guy like Mendoza or get a quarterback at one, now you're really sitting in a really strong position. So I still feel like they'll make the safe play, which is the smart play, which is get the quarterback who's the best quarterback in the draft.
I'm writing it down. Jeffri, thank you so much for the time. Get back to work, and I know it's a real busy week for you, so thank you again. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul. Good talking to you.
All right, take care. Hey, I want to thank today's guests, Bucky Brooks, Charles Davis, and Jeffri Chadiha, for helping break down and dive deeper into the opening days of the Combine. To stay up to date on all things silver and black at the Combine, you can check out new content on our Raiders YouTube page, as well as on Raiders.com. First Stop Indy shows will again air on Thursday and Friday. See you then.